Hey, fishing fans and mom. Ken Smith, KenSmithFishing.com. So this is going to be part 2 and part 3 of the Lake of the Ozarks video. And I'm breaking it into 2 parts, and I'm going to post them one right behind the other. Only because you're going to see, I got a crazy amount of fish catching video here. And you'll see I don't show the cast. I just see them, catch them, throw them back, catch them, throw them back. But I wanted to get it all posted up here, and I wanted to put in some information specifically on maps of where I fished. So let's jump to that first. So let's take a quick look at the maps of where I fished, and then I'll come back and I'll show you actually me catching those fish. So let's look at my quick map tip right here first. Guys, I thought I'd show you kind of where I fished during the tournament and what I saw that I was kind of keying off of. So this is Lake of the Ozarks. We put in down here. And I spent a little bit of time up here that first day, but I really didn't like the watercolor. So there's the dam. So I came down here and I wanted to fish in this sort of clearer water towards the dam. So the first morning I just kind of got in, started running up the lake, and I ran to the back of that pocket right there. Let me see if I can blow that up for you a little bit. So that pocket right there, it looks like it's called Workman Hollow. And I was fishing down that bank right there. There we go. I was fishing down that bank right there, and when I made that corner, I could see those fish blowing up and chasing back here. And that's where I caught those fish. And those were those tail kicker fish, and I actually don't have those fish on film. But then I ran several of these other pockets, and what I discovered was this. These pockets that didn't have the big flats in the back of them, and you can see that on the map. So I ran several pockets and I didn't see that same kind of thing, and running specifically I think probably that pocket and that pocket. And I kind of crossed over then and I ran this pocket and caught 2 or 3 keepers. I ran over here and caught 2 or 3 keepers. I caught keepers in here. I caught keepers in here. And what I started figuring out, and you can look at the map and you can see it, these pockets that just kind of die, they're not those flat pockets. They didn't have that, 3 to 20 acres of sort of flat, shallow water in the back, which is where all those bait fish were piling up. So I actually ran late in the day down here in the back of this one, in the back of this one, and in the back of this one, I believe it's that one, and caught fish in all of those. And so I thought, well, if that all worked, then I'm going to start working back up the lake. And the slugfest you guys saw me do just a second ago, the slugfest, I believe, was in the back of one of these. I think it was in one of these pockets through here. But this is the region I fished through. And I fished all these. And basically what would happen is when you would get in one of those pockets where you would have that big flat, so that light blue area, that's where those bait fish were piled up, and that's where you could catch those fish. Any of the ones that were shorter and or narrower, where there wasn't that big flat area, there just wasn't the bait fish in there to get all the bites that I was getting. So that's the kind of stuff that I was running. I ran basically from the dam back to, this is called the toll bridge. I may be getting this wrong, but right in here somewhere is the toll bridge. Bear with me. So I think the toll bridge is right here, I think. That doesn't seem right, but somewhere in this area is that toll bridge. And basically, that's the area of the lake that I fished on. The last day of the tournament, I actually fished the back of that pocket. That had a bunch of fish in it, and that pocket right there had a bunch of fish in it. And that pocket down there, which was in the arm where we took off out of, also had fish in it. Matter of fact, I caught my 4-pounder in there that last morning. So that's the kind of stuff I was fishing. And once I sort of figured out in practice that they had to have that flat back pocket, it became really easy. I would just pull up my Navionics map and run in there, and I mean, I could almost tell you before I ran in there if they were going to have fish in them or not. And the longer they were and the flatter they were in the back, the better. So that's where all those hybrids and largemouth were mixed in together. And by the way, when I talked earlier, all of my main lake buzzbait fish were all these little points. And I mean, every point just about that had shade on it or had a walkway on it would have a fish on it in practice. And as I said earlier in the first video, I probably spun out on those fish a little bit the first day too early, but live and learn. Okay, so that gives you a sense of where I fished throughout the tournament, and for those of you up there now or up there in the future, that gives you a good sense. It was interesting to me as we all came out of that arm and went under the bridge. There was about equal number of guys going left versus going right, and there was a fair number of guys who stayed right there and sort of fished right around where we took off from. And by the way, I tried that actually. The second morning I never cranked my big motor the second morning. I was boat 16 and put the trolling motor down, but it just didn't happen for me in there. So, couple of notes on these videos. First, you're going to notice in some of these videos, I am throwing an A-rig a really long ways. Now, not all the time, but you'll see, I think one of the early cast here, I fling it. And the water is so shallow back there, I was trying to stay away from those big pods of bait fish as best I could. And I got to tell you, I think part of what helped me get as many bites as I did was my gear. So I was using a gigantic Super Duty 3 luge rod. That's a rod, I think it's a 710 or a 711. You can absolutely launch an A-rig with it. Somebody asked me in the comments, what I was throwing was my top two baits were screw lock dummy baits. I actually got that from the guys at Tactical Bassin because it makes them ride really right and keeps the non-weighted baits on top. Which, by the way, interestingly, these fish are chasing, and I missed a lot of fish. So normally A-rig bites, you'll get them coming up to the bait. So they're going to be on the bottom two or the middle lures. When these fish are just chasing bait, they're biting every lure there. And I missed a lot of fish where they were coming up and whacking those top lures. But I still want my A-rig to run right. So two dummy Super Fluke Juniors on top, both in white. Middle hook is that same big bite hook I always use, super thin wire hook also with a Super Fluke Junior. But I discovered something in practice. So I was throwing that A-rig in practice, and you see the number of bites I'm getting here. And one of my bottom, and in practice I was throwing 5 hooks, by the way, but one of my bottom baits, the fluke gets chewed up. I sit down, that bag of flukes is empty. Laying there is a bag of white Yamamoto swim Senkos, and I thought, pretty close, put it on there. My next 4 or 5 bites in a row, they all bit that super fluke. So suddenly I got crazy good confidence. I've thrown a Zacco on them before. Got crazy confidence, just like in 30 minutes on that fluke. So in the tournament, a lot of the time you're going to see, which actually I don't show you tournament footage because I didn't catch crap, but a lot of the tournament I fished super fluke dummies, fluke in the middle, swimming Senkos on the bottom. The bottom I both had quarters that helped me throw it a long ways, but my gear again, Super Duty, huge luge rod, and then the extra wide spool reel. If you've never thrown one of those extra wide spools, it's a much wider spool and the line comes off way better. You can throw it a whole lot further. It's also got the big round handles to turn, which I think helps. And then I'm throwing it on 20-pound Cigar fluorocarbon. That gives me good strength, and I can still throw 20-pound a really long way. So I think the gear was a key deal. Plus, I wanted to be able, when those fish got around those docks with that 20-pound fluorocarbon, I wanted to be able to pull them out away from those docks. Couple of other things. So another thing, by the way, and this makes me crazy. When KVD grabs a fish from the side, they just seem to freeze. When I grab a fish from the side, I don't get it. Apparently they know it's not KVD, it's Ken Smith. But anyway, I think this is some great footage. There's going to be a stretch here. Let me look at my notes to remind myself. I didn't count the bites. It's 10 or 12 or 15 casts in a row, and I'll show you on the video how long this goes. But these are consecutive casts, catching at least 1, sometimes 2, and once 3 fish at a time. And you'll see it's hybrid, largemouth, hybrid, and then I catch a 4-pounder. And you'll notice that that's the last cast in that little space. The raw footage was 13 minutes and 48 seconds. Now that includes me unhooking fish and whatever. But for 13 minutes and 48 seconds, I caught a fish on every cast, with the last one being a 4-pound largemouth. You'll see then I bounce from there to another little corner of that same pocket. I catch another keeper, I take off, I go around the corner, and then I catch a 5-pounder. So these are that first, let me show you that long string of bites right here.
the Dutch. Oh, Lord. Oh, stop. Not very much, and then you roll up on something like that. That's another hybrid. You can tell by the way they take off. They hit it and they're just zip, 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 away they go. That's a largemouth. I saw him. God, there's some good fish in there. Maybe the wrong kind. I just doubled up again. I felt it. Look at this. Triple. Look at this. Oh! Triple mess. That first one bit it and ran underneath that other group that was eating. And I caught 2 more in that pass. Boy, that's a meal in one cast right there. Try to jump. That might be. No, we're running sideways here. You get one, you get 2. That's right there on the boat. Short string. Oh. Oh my gosh.
It felt like a big fish.
That last one I had was pretty good size. I'm supposed to be catching bass, but when they're biting like this, I catch whatever comes up.
Oh yeah, me too. I just like catching it.
Stretching my string. Another magnum. Oh, good gosh, that's a black bass. Oh, good gosh, that's a black bass. And it's a dandy too. It is a dandy. About a 4-pound black bass.
Really?
Yeah. Hey, not quite that big.
Well, I say that, maybe he is.
Yeah, that fish is over 4.
Nice one.
He's over 4. Boy, 5 of those a day, and I'd be winning me 100 grand.